It's John Ironmonger reporting for BBC Essex. Well, Rico Wojtulewicz is Head of Policy and Market Insight at the National Federation of Builders. Rico joins me now. Good morning to you, Rico.
Morning, Sonia.
Morning. Now, house builders like Bellway continue to make fairly big profits, don't they, despite a challenging market? Why do we keep hearing stories then about homeowners struggling with defects like this, leaking roofs?
Look, there are a number of reasons. I don't represent the major house builders. We represent typically kind of local builders building up to sites of 150, 250 homes, and down to maybe one or two. And they have a different method of building. So it's not for me to criticise the way Bellway operate or any other major house builder, but I'm going to tell you what happens with the members that I get no complaints from. They typically have two things: either a supply chain that they always use, which means that if they cause an issue, they'll stop using that supply chain, so that causes a major headache for those companies, or a directly employed workforce. And when you have both of those things, when one trade finishes a piece of work, you come and check it, the next set of trades comes in and do the work. Quite often on the major projects, too often, you will get everybody in at once, all doing work, and perhaps you subcontract to organisations that aren't consistent supply chains, and these buildings go up a lot more quickly. It can take 6 weeks to get 6 weeks faster to build these than perhaps the majority of my members. We've always suggested that that's a really important factor in ensuring that you get better quality and better outcomes, because it means that our members really are subject to winning work for local reputations, and if they get a bad reputation, people don't buy their products. That also brings in another element, and the government really needs to tackle this: competition. If we don't have any competition anymore, really, if you're honest, 9% of homes are built by small and medium-sized builders. They used to be 40 to 50%. So where you've got a big site next to a couple of smaller sites, the big site's always looking over their shoulder going, what are those other guys doing? Nowadays, it's just a couple of big builders building on a really large site. There's not that competition to stimulate quality. I'm not criticising any big builder at all, but I'm just telling you what happens when you have a change of system, and we are in this position now where unfortunately the government's not doing enough to enable the best practitioners and the best practice.
What could they do then to shift that landscape? What do you think needs to happen, Rico?
It's very simple. They just have to make sure the planning system enables more smaller builders to win work. That's all we have to do. And we're trying to put. Look, planning is really complicated, but effectively it means that local authorities decide who builds your homes. And if you complain about all these big builders building everywhere, well, it's your local authority that enable them. They need to enable more smaller builders to build work. And for example, you've got two types of site definitions: 0 to 10 and 10 to unlimited. We need one in the middle that's medium, so that those smaller companies can compete for work. Otherwise, when the local authority goes, well, we're going to build 2,000 homes, for example, they just focus on the biggest ones to get all the numbers through. They don't think about the smaller ones, which means that you don't naturally get that competition. And that's good for local people, because the majority of members employ within 20 miles of their head offices. Great for local employment. Directly employ or use that supply chain, great for local investment and local employment. So not just quality, but it means that you get better products, you get better homes, variation, loads of different tenure type of builders. Some of our members only build bungalows because they're good for, they know local people want bungalows. So actually you need that variation, and that just makes the whole system work better. Of course, there are other things we can do on the warranty side to make sure that the people are protected, without question. But fundamentally, unless you have a system whereby there's competition and that the best people can rise to the top, nothing's going to change, and the government has to enable more smaller builders.
Interesting. And you sort of touched on the sort of warranty side of things. Do you think buyers of the new build homes are better protected now against some of those defects and structural issues than they were, say, a decade ago? Is there better protection in place for home buyers now?
There is, and there are some changes to the regulations in the last few years that protected people for a longer period of time, what's called the Defective Premises Act. But of course, the example given today shows that there are real issues, and it's the biggest purchase you ever make in your life. And I had a member who came to me about 5 or 6 years ago, and he said to me, Rico, I've got 15 years ago, I built this property, met building regulations, but the flue in the chimney wasn't perfect for today's regulations. What shall I do? And I said, well, it's up to you. You decide what you want to do. You don't have to do it legally, but maybe to keep your reputation, you'll do something. So he went back, spent £6,000, changed the flue in the chimney because he realised that it was a reputational damage. I'm not saying everyone operates like that, but they knew that that was the right thing to do. So you'll get this approach where, look, the first thing you've got to do is work with the builder, and if they don't work with you, then you need to escalate it. And you've got consumer codes. There are a number of their New Homes Quality Board, consumer code for home builders. You need to raise this with your local MPs to make sure that these works are companies being held to account. But let's talk about a big builder that's having an issue. Maybe it's time that local authorities don't procure those companies to do works for them, and the government doesn't give them contracts, because if they're not going to meet what the consumer, the minimum amount of quality that consumer is required, maybe they shouldn't be part of the future of building the buildings of the future, not just houses. There are many different things these people build. Yeah. So there's a lot of carrot and a lot of stick here that's required.
And do you think the industry, I know you don't work with some of the larger building firms, but do you think they themselves are addressing some of these complaints? Because I've done stories about different developers and lots of snagging issues in new builds before. Do you think they're listening and responding in the right way?
Yes, I really do, because we had the changes. It was actually Michael Gove that brought through a few changes in the Defective Premises Act, which extended things to 30 years. There are stronger codes coming forward. So we've got the New Homes Quality Board, and it's bizarre because the NHQB, New Homes Quality Board, our members aren't really a kind of a big fan of it, because it's only there to rectify some of the major issues that we've seen with some organisations, and the best practitioners are getting penalised, and that's frustrating, because we never talk about the people that do the job well. Because why would you go, these guys are amazing? That's for local people kind of chattering. These house builders are brilliant, or this company's excellent. It's always the ones that we fail, and actually they're the ones that we need to be taken to task, and understanding why they're failing. Most builders, and I know it doesn't seem this way, most builders desperately care. We have millions of projects going on a year. You only hear about the minority that are problematic. That should tell you that actually the industry really does care. And every few years we have, this is an issue, we must fix it. And it's interesting that you talked about kind of ventilation and mould and all that. Recently we had something called PARTO, which is overheating regulations. That came in because local authorities added all these things to make homes warmer, and that created overheating issues. Now, industry is now tackling that as an issue to make sure that we don't have these problems in 5 or 10 years' time. So look, industry is always evolving. And if you're unsure, you want to go and buy a property, speak to your builder. See if you can get good communication. My members have said if you're going to get a survey around while I'm building the property, that's absolutely fine. If you get good communication from somebody you're buying a product from, probably means that you're going to get a good product.
Yeah, some really useful information, Rico. Thanks as always for joining us on The Breakfast Show this morning. Rico Wojtulewicz, who is the Head of Policy and Market Insight at the National Federation of Builders, are going to talk to Paul